Here at Paddy Power, we're the home of the Money Back Special, with some incredible offers every single week. Check out the website or app today. Terms and conditions apply. 18 plus BeGambleAware.org.
Hello and welcome back to the Football Postcast here on the Racing Post. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, we've got a very exciting show lined up for you. Myself, Jack Reeve, joined with Mark Langdon and Liam Flynn in the studio. And we've got Sam Kingston on the phone from Paddy Power. Going to be going through all of the weekend's action, trying to find out some really nice bets for you and also taking a quick look back at what we've seen in the week. Gents, let's get straight into it. I'm surprised you're both here considering the winning streak we went on last weekend. It was a winning Postcast treble and it was a winning Akabaka. You could find that on our YouTube channel. Mark, is it getting to that stage in the season now where we can start to see patterns and it's slightly easier to pick winners?
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I don't want to get people overconfident. We've been knocking on the door a few times. I mean, and it was just one of those weekends where it all fell into play quite nicely. But I wouldn't like to put people away and say that there's a best time to, I think every weekend's pretty much the same. The only time I don't like is the very end of the season when you're working out which teams are trying and which ones are not and stuff like that. Other than that, I think we can put it down to a little bit of luck. We can't be too, we never get too up, never get too down.
Very true.
Sound a bit like a football manager here, but I think it's true. It's just how it is.
The mood feels lifted, Liam, in this studio. The morale is high. It's slightly warmer as well. I don't think producer Rob's trying to kill us off with the cold air conditioning. Feeling good?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think in a lot of these leagues now, it's settling down a little bit. Like Mark says, you can never just jump in and say, oh yeah, now you can be certain. But there are certain slight patterns emerging sort of towards the top of the leagues. Like I had Sevilla last week to beat Getafe, and I think I'm starting to like the look of them. And Getafe obviously falling away a bit after sort of competing in Europe as well. So yeah, it was a very, very good week for us.
Sam, how is this time of the season from a bookie's perspective?
Yeah, it's easier to rate teams, I guess, when you can finally see what their XG is compared to other teams in the league. So it's easier to get an actual feeling for some teams. Ratings at the start of the season can be a little bit off, and then you start seeing teams' forms and seeing how they're playing against other sides, and you're able to more accurately rate teams then.
Great stuff. Well, hopefully we'll find some more winners for you all watching and listening at home today. Right, let's get straight into the action. It's the Saturday midday fixture. It's Bournemouth against Manchester United on BT Sport. Sam, we'll start with the prices here, mate.
Yeah, we've got Bournemouth 23-10. We've the draw 12-5, and Man United 11-10.
Liam, I mean, both of these teams will be relatively confident, I feel, going into this game. As a Norwich fan, I've seen both of these teams in recent weeks. I was actually really impressed with what I saw from Manchester United. Not so much with Bournemouth, but Bournemouth at home, they always prefer playing at home, don't they? How can you see this one going?
Yeah, they do. But that said, I think given the slight lift in United's away form of late, I'm going to side with them in this one at the prices. They obviously showed their kind of counter-attacking qualities that we know they have against Chelsea in the EFL Cup. They're 1-2-1 despite only having 34% possession in that game. He was on the bench on that occasion, but I think the return of Anthony Martial has been a big boost for them. I felt maybe there was a bit too much sort of over-reliance on Marcus Rashford, and perhaps that was getting to him slightly. But he's boosted the team. They've won their 3 consecutive away matches in all competitions since drawing that 1-1 with Liverpool. Solskjaer as well drifted in that sort of next Premier League manager to leave market, but I mean he's obviously helped by some other managers not doing particularly well of late. And I think Eddie Howe's been trying some different attacking combinations recently in terms of who he has in that front too, and he's been struggling. Only 1 goal in their last 3 matches. I think their need for goals now is obviously coming on a little bit strong, and being at home they might push for goals, and then that could lead them susceptible to a United break. So I think Bournemouth are worth opposing in this game. I think United are now realising that there's no shame in sort of relying on counter-attacking football, even against a sort of smaller sides, if you can call Bournemouth that, in the Premier League. So yeah, Manchester United for me.
Sam, where do you stand with this? I mean, Liam mentioned there, and quite rightly, that Manchester United's away form starting to pick up somewhat. Are you siding with United as well here?
Yeah, we're actually ducking Man United this week, staying short on them. A lot of reasons for that. Martial coming back into the side is definitely a reason for that. They look a lot more creative. Their expected goals against Norwich was quite high. It was 4.5. Obviously scored 3 and missed 2 penalties in that one. And overall, they are third in the XG table. So maybe they are slightly underperforming versus their XG all season. And with Martial back in there, they will be a lot more creative this week. You then look at Bournemouth, who haven't scored in their last 3 league games. They're starting to really struggle for goals. So I'm definitely siding with Man United. I'd be backing them at 11-10 there.
Brilliant. I didn't realise that stat, Mark. I probably should have known that Bournemouth haven't scored in the last 3. You always associate Bournemouth with goals. That stat telling you otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, they've only conceded 1 in those 3 games as well. I don't share the optimism in the studio on Manchester United. I'm going to oppose them. I think that Bournemouth probably draw no bet, given that their games have been tight in recent weeks. That goal they conceded came against Arsenal. I just think for United, this is a really quick turnaround. I mean, Wednesday night, Liam mentioned how little possession they had at Stamford Bridge. They had to work really hard for the victory, 2 set-piece goals. So I still don't think we can say they're creating enormous chances from open play. To play Wednesday night with what was almost the first team that he picked at Stamford Bridge, to then go into action again against a team that's had a free midweek, I think is a definite disadvantage for Manchester United. No doubt in my mind that Rashford limped off, so maybe it was just a little bit of fatigue, but it still didn't. It's not great to see. I think if you want to back United, and I just think that Bournemouth at home, I mean, sort of a week ago, maybe 10 days ago, I don't think there'd been anyone back in Manchester United to win this game, and I just wonder if it's just been a consequence of they're a decent team, so they will win football matches. I still don't think that their attacking play is where it needs to be. They rely a lot on set pieces and penalties. I mean, an extraordinary amount of penalties. Bournemouth, no, they can't. No, Bournemouth have gone off the boil. But like I say, about a week ago, I would happily back Bournemouth here, so I'm going to stick with them.
I'm interested you mentioned there about Manchester United's possession. I think when they played Liverpool, they recorded the second lowest possession they had at Old Trafford since Opta started recording stats in 2003. Are we looking into that a bit much? Do you think Manchester United have just simply adapted their game slightly?
No, I think they played in a quite cowardly way against Liverpool, maybe understandably so, given the difference in ability between the two teams. You could say that was a sensible approach. I just wonder what will happen in this game against Bournemouth, because Bournemouth have been more pragmatic this season. I think Eddie Howe is trying to develop that they're not this one-trick pony that you attack, we attack, and then just see who gets the most goals at the end. So this could be quite a cagey, low-scoring affair, and that's why I don't really like the favourites at 11-10 away from home. Okay, well, mixed opinions here in the studio. Let us know what you think down in the comments section below, or tweet us at Racing Post or at Racing Post Sport. We're going to go for a quick break. We'll be back in a minute.
I'm Jose Mourinho. I know a thing or two about being special. English Manager of the Year 3 times, special. Winning the daily jackpot on Paddy Power games, not special.
Understood, Jose. Yes, someone wins an average £40,000 jackpot every single day. So if you win, don't think you're special. Daily Jackpots by Paddy Power Games. Jackpots must be awarded by 11 p.m. and vary from day to day. Jackpot is shared with other operators. Available on selected games. T's and C's at paddypower.com. 18 plus BeGambleAware.org.
Hello and welcome back to the Football Postcast here on the Racing Post. Thanks so much for tuning in once again. Jack Reeve here with Mark Langdon and Liam Flynn in the studio, and also Sam Kingston on the phone from Paddy Power, giving you the best bets ahead of this weekend's football matches across the Premier League, EFL and also Europe. We've just discussed Bournemouth versus Manchester United. Now we'll get into the 3 o'clock Saturday games. There's quite a lot this week. I like to see that. A nice 3 o'clock on a Saturday, nice and traditional. Let's talk about Arsenal versus Wolves first. I'm sure the big talking point here we'll get on to in a moment. But let's start with the prices. Sam, how are we shaping up for this?
We have Arsenal 8-11, the draw 13-5, and Wolves at 7-2.
Liam, I'm going to come to you first. You've got your good friend behind you on the screen. I mean, I was listening to phone-ins on the radio driving back after the Arsenal game last week, and it just seems as if Arsenal fans, they don't know where they stand. They're in a bit of a mess. The club is not in a great situation, not playing the best football, and a real fractured team on the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of all came out in one go, didn't it? I mean, in terms of the Granit Xhaka incident, I'm more on his side than the rest of the Arsenal fans. I think, yes, he didn't act in a particularly professional manner and he could have gone about it in a better situation. But sort of talking from a human perspective, when you kind of dealing with that relentless bullying week in and week out for all he's
Do you
really
call it
done.
bullying?
Yeah, I would probably go. I mean, the booing is pretty bad. I've experienced it at the game I was at Vicarage Road as well, directed towards Xhaka and a lot of the other players. So I think it really, after all of that, it's only a natural reaction from a player like that. He probably, in fairness, doesn't have the temperament to be Arsenal captain in the first place, and maybe that was a mistake by Emery. I probably expect it to be changed now based on that. I don't think it's the kind of thing with, sort of the way Arsenal fans tend to act. It's not going to be sort of swept under the rug that easily. So, it's just disappointing for Granit Xhaka and disappointing for Arsenal, and the club's not in a particularly great place at the moment.
I guess the question here is, Liam, does Xhaka return from this? Is there any way back?
Well, yeah, that's the difficulty. In terms of, like I say, in captaincy, I don't think there will be, because obviously you have to sort of act in a certain way as a captain, and sort of that reaction probably doesn't sit well with very many Arsenal fans. He's a very mediocre player. I've been critical of him in the past, but not to the extent where I'd go along and boo him at a game. I do think his position at Arsenal is going to come under fire now.
Sam, any sympathy for the Arsenal fans? Do you think they've almost had enough of it, and do you think the booing is warranted?
I wouldn't say warranted. I'm an Arsenal fan myself, and I don't think they should ever really boo a player. I personally have wanted him out of the team all season, but I wouldn't go about it that way by booing him like that. And it is a bit of a history with Arsenal as well. They did it to Abue, and then of course the toxic atmosphere at the club last year or 2 years ago, wanting Wenger out as well. So there is a history there with Arsenal fans, which isn't great to see. I think a lot of them, well, they obviously do want Xhaka out of the team, but that's not really the right way to go about it. So sympathy with the fans? No, not really. A little bit of sympathy with him, but again, I think he could also be better on the pitch.
And Mark, I mean, it's kind of this modern day football fan predicament, is it? Do we go to football with the expectancy to be entertained, or do we go to the football to support the team through thick and thin no matter what?
I feel like this is really the move to the Emirates has seen Arsenal pick up a lot of kind of fans who maybe don't remember when Arsenal were a pretty average team, and they were they kind of were. There's this kind of new set of supporters that only remember kind of the Invincibles and Thierry Henry, maybe Dennis Bergkamp, even Ian Wright, but there was time before that when they weren't great at all, So I think there's conflict. You see it and hear about it in the stadium between kind of these newer fans and the older ones, and then you get, who are they actually angry about? They seem very angry at like the owner, the manager, the player, the captain. There's a lot of anger there. I think a lot of it is from probably Arsenal have got probably the strongest social media in the Premier League, I'd say. Maybe them or Liverpool. And I think that it's kind of they kind of row amongst themselves all week on Twitter or YouTube, or Arsenal Fan TV kind of has become infamous in the way that it's kind of driven. First of all, the celebration when the team is going well, but now it's this anger, and I think that it just builds up to this point where every sort of match day now is like people having pops at each other, and it's not good. And I don't think Unai Emery has moved the team on particularly well. Since Arsene Wenger, if you would have sort of been an alien, not sort of heard the news that Arsene Wenger had left, and you watched them, you probably think he was still in charge, and that's probably I think about as bad a thing as you can say about Unai Emery, because a new manager really had an opportunity, I think, to take the team in a new direction. He hasn't really done that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, certainly not a happy place to go and watch football, the Emirates, at the moment. But they take on Wolves this weekend. Sam, let's get your prediction quickly, mate.
Yeah, I'd actually say to lay Arsenal here. They're yet to play well in the league. But Wolves are very decent against the top six. They drew with United and Leicester and beat City so far this year. Last season, they picked up 16 points in 12 games against the top six. And they also went on an FA Cup run, beating United and Liverpool. So the record against the top six is very good. And Arsenal this season, as I said, yet to play well. Xhaka issues won't help anything. So I'm going for to lay Arsenal Wolves double chance.
Liam, dipping into the goal scorer market, Granit Xhaka?
Well, I won't be going anywhere near the results market, so I don't. Not keen on either side here, really. I like the look of second half to be the highest scoring at about even money. Santo's men, they've led at the break in only one Premier League game. this season. Arsenal have been in front in only 3. Both teams tend to play their better football in the second half, so I think probably liven up then. Wolves sit third in the league's 46 to 90 minute table, and the clubs have scored a combined 19 second half league goals this season. So yeah, I think we can expect the game to maybe pick up in the second half.
Stat galore, love it. Mark?
I'm going to agree with Sam here and go for Wolves or draw, double chance. I just think the atmosphere is not great. Won't have been helped by the cup exit at Liverpool when they had the game won sort of 3 times and still didn't get over the line. Different players, but I just think it adds to this kind of, doomsday scenario that seems to be going on at the moment at the Emirates. Not as confident with Willy Bolly out for Wolves. I think he's a really important player. So if you wanted a first goal scorer at a big price, I think Socrates. Set pieces were an issue for Wolves last week. Lascelles scored, and Arsenal actually have been quite good at sort of scoring from dead balls. The Greek defender and Luiz have both been notching recently.
Brilliant, sounds good. Let us know on Twitter or in the comments section if you fancy Arsenal to turn it around a bit and pick up some points against Wolves. Next game then, next 3 o'clock kickoff is Aston Villa against Liverpool. Sam, it seems even when Liverpool try to lose, they win. What are the prices here?
Yeah, it certainly does. Villa 15-2, the draw 4-1, and Liverpool 3-10 here.
Any value in backing Liverpool at 3-10, do you think?
I wouldn't back them straight win now, but I would go Liverpool win and both teams to score. And they're likely to rest Fabinho this week. He's 1 yellow card away from suspension, and they do play Manchester City the fixture after. So I don't think he'll actually play the game. I still fancy them to win, as they do. They win every single game. So Villa did give a good account of themselves against Man City last weekend. I think they are worth a goal. They've scored 14 in their last 6 in all competitions. And inside that was a 3-0 defeat to Manchester City as well. So not the worst goal-scoring run that they're on. I would go Liverpool and both teams to score in this one.
Mark, I think we're in this studio every week talking about and trying to find reasons why Liverpool might not come through a game, but they always find ways to do so, don't they? And they've got the real mark of a champions team here.
I thought they played really well against Tottenham last week. Fully deserved the victory, albeit that the winning goal came from a bit of a daft penalty giveaway, but they did deserve it. What I would say though there is that they're not thrashing teams at the moment. The last 4 wins have all been by 1 goal, and the game sort of that separates that was a 1-1 against Manchester United that was also tight. I think teams are. You saw that last week. Tottenham very defensive against them, and I think that Aston Villa, even though their instinct is to attack, will kind of give Liverpool full respect. So Liverpool to win by 1 goal.
Liam?
Yeah, 3-1 draw, Liverpool double result. So to be a draw at half time, then Liverpool to go on to win the game. Obviously, we can expect widespread changes to that EFL team, very sort of weak EFL team, really, a very young team they put out against Arsenal. But Aston Villa have trailed only once at half time in the Premier League this season. I think Liverpool might take time to break them down at Villa Park. Obviously, Villa denied City a first half goal at the Etihad in their last Premier League outing. And I think with Liverpool's key forwards coming back into the frame, they should have enough to get the win. So to get a bit of value out of it, I'd say draw, Liverpool double result.
Brilliant stuff. On to Brighton now. It's Brighton against Norwich. Sam, how are we looking for this?
Got Brighton 4-6, the draw 3-1, and Norwich are 7-2 here.
Mark, what have you made of Brighton's kind of last few weeks? I mean, they're starting to get into some kind of rhythm, I think.
Yeah, I thought they were a bit lucky against Everton. I mean, it was a penalty that wouldn't have been given in the 9 previous weeks of Premier League action before they went a bit bonkers on VAR last week. And then nicked a very late winner for an own goal. So they probably feel that they deserved that luck because it had deserted them other weeks, like against Aston Villa. So the 4-6 has shortened up a bit. I did like Brighton when they were just a shade of odds on. I might go here for actually what Liam was just talking about, the draw half time and then Brighton to eventually get the win. Norwich, 1 away point, 1 away goal. That would concern me, and I'm sure it concerns you, Jack.
Yes, it does. Sam mentioned there, but Norwich, I think the strength of last season where they were scoring lots of goals away from home, they've stopped scoring away but are still conceding away. Can you see anything other than a Brighton win here?
I think Norwich might be due one. They've lost 4 of their last 5 games, and it's only 1 win and 9 for them. The stats don't look good. Pukki hasn't scored in his last 5 as well, but something tells me they might be due one. Brighton are so short of 4-6. I just don't think I'd back them at 4-6 against anyone in the league. Their last two home games were very impressive against Spurs and Everton, But the Spurs one was their first win at home this season, and their first one since Huddersfield in March. That was the only game they'd won in 2019 last season at home. So I think Norwich might be due, and I'm going for Norwich draw and home bet in this one.
Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Thanks very much, Sam. Liam, I saw last week you were tipping up Timu Pukki to score against Manchester United. It didn't happen in that game. Will it happen in this?
Possibly, but I've actually got a different goal scorer bet for this one.
Okay.
I was going to go with Leandro Trossard to score first at 8-1 for Brighton. Just come back from a groin injury. Got some minutes off the bench last week. Looked very dangerous in the final third. Only Neil Maupay has averaged more shots per game than Trossard for Brighton this season. He's already got one goal to his name, and you'll know more about this, but I believe there's question marks over Jamal Lewis's availability for Norwich in this one. Obviously, still got other defensive concerns with players out, so opting for a Brighton first goal scorer could be the way to go.
Good stuff. Sam, on to the next one. Manchester City against Southampton. How short are Manchester City for this?
We've 1-12 Man City. The draw 9-1, and Southampton are 20-1.
So with that being said, where's your money going here?
For me, I'm always looking for value in these very one-sided games. I found a market that I quite liked last season, and I'm going to go for it again this year. It's an anytime correct score that we have up. So I've gone for 3-0 Man City at 5-6 here. So that means for the score to be 3-0 at any stage in the game. As I said, I think it's really good value for very one-sided games. You'd imagine City will score 3, and I can't really see Southampton scoring in this one. With Kevin De Bruyne back in the side, they have scored 22 goals in their last 5 home games with him in the side. And the only blips this season have been when he hasn't been in it. So the defeat to Norwich and the defeat to Wolves, he only came on with 30 minutes to go when they were 3-1 down against Norwich, and he didn't play the Wolves game at all. So with De Bruyne in there, I think City are really free scoring. I think they will hammer Southampton here. But an anytime correct score, 3-0 at 5-6 here.
I don't think I've heard that market tipped up on this show before. Great stuff, Sam. Mark, I mean, Southampton's last game was probably very memorable in the league. I was down the pub watching that, and it was great entertainment because Southampton seemingly, even when they were conceding the 7th and the 8th, still not wanting to defend. Yeah. Could Man City reach 10 here?
Well, I think they probably would have if they were playing Southampton last week. We saw a reaction of sorts against a weaker Manchester City team, but Southampton, I mean, when they went to the Etihad for the League Cup game, it was a case of let's not be humiliated. They gave up 77% possession to a weakened City team, barely went into City's half in the first half. And I suspect they'll try to do the same again here because I don't really give them any hope of getting any kind of result. It's just going to be damage limitation. Correct score, I've just gone 4-0. I think look, it was 3-1 in the Cup. City have got a stronger team. I agree with everything Sam said there about De Bruyne. He just makes such a massive difference. But City have got sort of bigger fish to fry coming up. So if they do get to 3 or 4, there might not be a need to massively kick on Liverpool next week.
Yeah, Liam, is there genuine fear here for Southampton that they're in a proper relegation scrap?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you're losing 9-0, you definitely got to be down there, haven't you? Yeah, it's always a sort of fortnightly challenge finding value in a Man City home game. But for this one, I like the look of Man City to win both halves, about 5-6. Didn't click in that League Cup meeting, but as Mark said, that was a weakened City side against a pretty much full-strength Southampton team, give or take one or two players maybe. City won the shot count 19-5, obviously had 77% possession, as we said. So I'd expect them to be even more dominant in this game. Southampton's confidence just through the floor at the moment, unsurprisingly. And it's no secret, we know now that Manchester City are very good at starting games strongly. No Premier League club betters their tally of 16 first half goals this season. And yeah, I just think that, as we saw in that 9-0, Southampton aren't exactly the greatest at tightening up when they're conceding goals. So if City do run into an early lead, I wouldn't see them stopping in that second half either. So yeah, City to win both halves.
Not the greatest at tightening up, very polite, Liam. On to Sheffield United against Burnley next. On paper, probably doesn't sound like the most exciting of clashes, but I've watched a lot of these two teams this season. I've been really impressed with them. Sam, where's your money going here?
We've got Sheffield United 11-10, the draw 21-10, and Burnley 5-2. For me, I'd be on a draw here. I think both sides have started the season reasonably well. Neither are in dire need of a win, so I think they would both take a point. All Sheffield United's last 4 home games have finished 1-0. They did lose 3 of them. And Burnley have drawn 3 of their last 4 away games. So I think both teams will take a point here. I'd kind of split stakes here on 0-0 and 1-1.
Mark, you've been incredibly complimentary of Burnley in recent weeks. Are you going to stay that way?
No, I'm actually going for both teams to score in this one. I mean, I thought Burnley played quite well against Chelsea. I mean, given how often, like last season, maybe the season before, you come out for a game and think, how on earth have Burnley got a result there? It was kind of the other way against Chelsea. At sort of 0-0, 1-0 and 2-0, they had good chances and didn't take them. They've been involved in sort of far more ding-dong battles than what would have expected of them in pre-season. That said, I think having conceded 4 goals, I think Sean Dyche may think that the fun's time to stop now. And, this is a big game for them because when you get to the end of the season, you still think these are the kind of matches, really, these sort of 6 point. It doesn't feel like a 6-pointer now, but if this game was being played in March or April, it may well be considered one. And I think that Burnley will give Sheffield United, and rightly so, a lot of respect. I mean, Sheffield United, only 6 goals in total in their games at Bramall Lane. In terms of both teams to score, no, that's copped in 4 of their 5 home matches as well. I think it's going to be a really tight game, and once one team scores, I just see them retreating and making it very difficult for the other one to break sort of the opposition down.
Liam?
Yeah, similar angle. I was looking at under 2.5 goals, a bit short, around 47. So actually go under 1.5 goals at 2-1 in this game. Yeah, can definitely see it being a low scoring affair, like Mark says. Sheffield United, their games have featured an average of 1.7 goals per season. I think that puts them bottom of that table. Under 1.5 goals actually landed in 4 of their last 5 matches, incredibly. Sean Dyche, as we know, is a very pragmatic coach. He probably sees a little bit of his old sort of Burnley side in Chris Wilder's Sheffield United. So I think they'll play with respect, and I can see this game either finishing 0-0 or being settled by a single goal.
Good stuff. There's always one game each week on this fixture list that just doesn't get me very excited, and it's this one this week, West Ham against Newcastle. Just not that appealing to me. Sam, convince me otherwise.
So we've got West Ham 4-5 here. They've just gone into odds on. The draw 13-5 and Newcastle 16-5 in this one.
Okay. Mark, is it going to be exciting?
I'm going, so I hope it will be. But no, I'm going for a bit of compensation here, going for under 2.5 goals. So if it's a bad game, at least I'll cop. But I just noticed with West Ham in last week's 1-1 against Sheffield United, they did create, I think, enough chances to win the game. But there was no Lanzini, no Fornals. Just wonder if Pellegrini thinks that he was maybe a bit too attacking at times this season. They haven't won that many matches, and the two sort of, if you beat Man United, the other 2 victories were against the teams in 19th and 20th in the Premier League table at the moment. But 6 of their 10 matches have been under 2.5, which I think is slightly surprising given that they were meant to be these kind of great entertainers. And one of those, the City game, outside of that Man City thrashing, they've been quite tight, the West Ham games. And Newcastle, I mean, they're okay in terms of getting themselves set up, organised well, but there's just nothing up front at the moment. 7 of their 10 games have been under 2.5 goals. And if you look at sort of 2 of those, I think if you look at Leicester, they were down to 10 men for a long time. Another one against Liverpool where, I mean, you always like to get quite heavily beat against them at Anfield. So in their matches against kind of normal opposition and normal, kind of 11v11, most of their games are unders.
Yeah, definitely. Sam, I've really struggled to kind of make out what these 2 teams are about this season. There's been some incredibly peculiar results. How do you think this one's going to go?
I'm siding with the West Ham win here. That's mainly due to their home form. They have only won 2 of their 5 home games, but they beat Sheffield United comfortably on the XG there last week. They did put in great performances against United and Norwich, didn't concede in either and scored 2. They've won this fixture the last 3 times as well, but I would just look at Newcastle's away form. Like, they've only beaten Spurs. It's the only point that they've picked up. I think they'll be targeting games at St James's Park. I think that's where they're going to be looking to pick up most of their points this season. They've lost every game on the XG this season, so I'd be slightly siding with the West Ham win here.
Do you agree, Liam?
Yeah, I go for a West Ham win as well. They're West Ham been on a little slightly poor run of late, but I do think against, as Mark said, against bigger sides, it's more defensive issues that have troubled them. Going forwards, they do have a lot of quality. They conceded plenty of chances against Sheffield United, but I don't think they're going to have that issue with Newcastle. As you said, they don't have a lot going for them in the final third. I think Joe Linton has got a long way to go before he can sort of establish himself as a proper Premier League striker. Only Watford have scored fewer goals in the Premier League this season than the Magpies, who've lost their last 3 away league games by an aggregate scoreline of 9-1. So yeah, West Ham for me.
That's your 3 o'clock kickoffs rounded up. We'll be back in a moment to have a look at the Saturday evening fixture and also Super Sunday. Plus, it won last week. Will the boys' naps come in again? Find out shortly.
Everything is better when it's bigger. Paddy Power's Same Game Multi allows you to combine a number of selections from a single match into one big bet. Check out the Same Game Multi tab and get building your bet. Terms and conditions apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Hello, welcome back to the final part of the football postcast here on the Racing Post. Thanks so much for tuning in. Mark Langdon and Liam Flynn with me, Jack Reeve in the studio, and we've got Samuel Kingston from Paddy Power on the phone line. We've just gone through the 3 o'clock Saturday games. Let's have a look at the Saturday evening fixture. It's a 5:30 kickoff on Sky Sports. It's the struggling Watford against the buoyant Chelsea. Sam, how are we shaping up for this?
We've got Watford 4-1. We've the draw 16-5, and Chelsea at 4-7 here.
Were you expecting Watford to be as long as 4-1, Mark?
Yes, because Chelsea are in this great run of Premier League form. They were knocked out of the cup on Wednesday by Manchester United. But in terms of the Premier League, it all looks like it's going well. I think it's a bit short, 4-7 against a Watford team. Played a mix and match side at Goodison on Tuesday. I wouldn't read too much into that. I think Quique Sanchez-Flores was thinking about this game. They have drawn 5 of their last 7 games in the Premier League. They are winless, so I think the draw could be the way to go. That includes, sharing the spoils against Arsenal and Tottenham, 2 teams that are maybe on a bit of a downer, but still, I think between now and the end of the season, you wouldn't say you're going to collect that many fewer points than what Tottenham than Chelsea. So, I mean, a similar standard of opposition. They've managed to draw those 2 games. The 2 defeats, 8-0 at Man City, are obviously absolutely horrendous result. I thought they played okay at Wolves when they lost 2-0. It was a bit harsh, that 2-0. And I felt Chelsea were lucky to win 4-2 against Burnley last week. There was a mistake for one of the goals. There was a deflection on another one. And I thought Burnley created enough to suggest that Chelsea are not good things here at 4-7 away from home. No, not for me.
Sam, I've got absolutely no evidence to back this up, so feel free to shoot me down here. But it just feels as if there's a result coming for Watford soon. I'm surprised that they've gone so long without a win. Can you see it happening in this game against Chelsea?
Well, I do agree with Mark that the 4-7 does look quite short, so I wouldn't actually back that. I do think Chelsea will win the game, but I wouldn't back the 4-7. Watford just are struggling for goals for me. They've only scored 5 goals in their 10 Premier League games. They've drawn their last 2 home games 0-0. Only scored 2 in their last 5 home games. So they are really struggling for goals there. Then you look at Chelsea, who I've been a really big fan of this season. They've won their last 7 games, bar you take out the Man United one last night. There's been recent clean sheets as well against Ajax and Newcastle. Defending set pieces was a big issue for them earlier in the season. It does look like Lampard's focusing on that now, and Tomori and Zouma are creating a decent centre-back partnership. So I actually think they are going to keep a clean sheet in this one. I'm going to go for Chelsea to win to 0, which is a bit better value at 21-10 here.
No, I really like that. I mean, Liam, we spoke earlier about teams starting to get in the rhythm of a season. I don't think that's epitomised more than Chelsea at the moment. They're really starting to get into the groove of things, aren't they? Watford, on the other hand, struggling, and they need a win soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. They haven't been playing badly, and it's probably only a matter of time. I don't think it will come this week, though. I'm actually going to go for the same price, Chelsea to win and both teams to score. No, I agree that Watford have had issues in the final third, and I do think they are desperate for Troy Deeney to come back into that side. And I think when he does, that's when the wins will start to come, and I think they'll be okay by the end of the season. Obviously, I don't want to make too many long-term predictions at the moment, but I think they will. But for all that firepower in the final third that Chelsea have, they are so leaky at the back, especially on the road, possibly down to the absence of Antonio Rudiger. I think he's there head and shoulders above the rest of their centre-backs. And they haven't kept an away clean sheet in the league this season. Obviously, we saw them concede twice at Norwich. They conceded twice at Wolves, twice at Burnley. And I think they could probably concede a consolation against the Hornets, especially if Watford play how they did when I was at the Arsenal game. They were very positive, created, obviously, have many shots in that match. And I do have a lot of creativity in that team. It's just been putting the ball in the back of the net, which has been a bit of an issue. But I think, given Chelsea's defensive vulnerabilities, they can get on the score sheet, but should still be a Chelsea win.
Sounds good. On to Super Sunday now. It's Crystal Palace with Leicester travelling to Selhurst Park. How are we pricing up for this one, Sam?
We've Crystal Palace 9-4. The draw is 23-10, and Leicester is shade of odds against at 6-5.
And I mean, Leicester, I think there are a lot of people at the start of the season expecting them to go well. They've started the season really strongly, haven't they, Sam?
They have, yeah. They've been super this season. It seems strange to a lot of people that I would be saying to lay Leicester this week. We were actually holding them at 5-4 this week for most of the week, but we've now gone into 11-10. They've only won 2 of their last 5 away games. I know one of them was the 9-0 drubbing of Southampton. And Palace have lost only 1 home game of 5 this season, which was against Manchester City. So Palace have been quite good at home, and Leicester slightly shaky away. I know that 9-0 last week wouldn't suggest so. They're also the head-to-head. Palace have won the last 4 fixtures between the sides. A lot of the time might not mean much, but a lot of them have been some hammerings with 5-0, a 4-1 and a 3-0 in there. So I do actually like the look of Palace this week. I'm just going to say lay Leicester and go with Palace +1.
Football's bonkers, isn't it, Liam? That Leicester can go and win 9-0 and still be called shaky.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think they'll be hitting the 9 mark this week. I like the look of the draw in this game. I think, Palace have been fighters all season, and this is obviously a completely different game, not only in terms of not scoring 9 goals, but just generally to the one at Southampton. Palace very disciplined, 15 points in the Premier League already this season. Took a point off Arsenal last time out. Say what you want about the late overturning of the goal decision. They were still very good in that game, I felt. And they lost to Man City 2-0 in their last home game, but that was the scoreline at the break, and they successfully kept their shape in that second half. They didn't panic, and 2-0 against Manchester City. I mean, some teams would take that now. But Leicester have developed, I think the biggest change I've seen in them over the last couple of seasons is they've developed into more of a possession-based side now. They're not necessarily reliant on counter-attacking football as much. And I think that may play into Palace's hands a little bit in this game, because I think they know that they can hit them on the counter. Jordan Ayew has looked particularly good this season. We know about the danger of Wilfried Zaha. So I think that they could possibly cancel each other out, and a draw would be the bet for me.
Mark, I've been trying to find a word to sum up Palace this season. I think Liam just found it there for me, and disciplined. Yeah. I quite like Palace.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the game that I saw them live at probably skewed my sort of opinion of them, because they were 4-0 down in no time, and it was a really odd performance from them. It was out of character. Tottenham scored virtually every shot they had, which doesn't sort of help, I suppose, the Palace mood. It was also Sakho's first game of the season, and I think that showed actually he wasn't quite at it. But other than that, I mean, they've been... certainly in recent weeks, very stubborn and very good at times. Only 3 defeats this season. I think Leicester could be a lay here. They're a shorter price to win at Crystal Palace than what they were at Southampton last week. Feels like at least as difficult a match. And I mean, the 9-0. I mean, to be honest, once it sort of gets to sort of 2 or 3. The game was over, wasn't it? I don't think it. And Southampton were down to 10 men from virtually the whole game as well. And if you take out the games when they've actually been against 10 men, Leicester, when it's been 11v11, their goal difference isn't that great. Certainly not of a team that you would, and that their stats are not a team that you would necessarily think are top 4. Now maybe, and they won a title without necessarily showing stats like that, and they're lethal in the final third at the moment. Just wonder if Jamie Vardy will get the space that he craves against a Palace team that is quite happily to defend deep. And, that is when Vardy is really at his best, when he finds space in behind defences. So Roy Hodgson in 2019, Palace, outside of the obvious teams, have been sort of better than most. That's nearly a whole calendar year now. This is a difficult game for Leicester. If they win it easily, I'll start to say, yeah, okay, top 4. For now, I'm still reserving a bit of judgment.
Yeah, really intriguing team to both watch and also try and find a bet on at the moment, Leicester. Let's go on to the next game then. It's Everton against Spurs. Sam, I had some money on Everton in the week, and thankfully they came through in the end. But if you'd have been reading the tweets that Everton fans were sending, they were fuming with the way that they performed. And they're certainly not having the most fun of seasons. They take on a Spurs side at Goodison Park at 4:30 on Sunday. First of all, let's get the prices, and then also let's get your prediction.
Okay, Everton are 13-8. The draw is 12-5, and Spurs very short for me at 6-4. I'm siding with an Everton win here. I really can't see past it, to be honest. Spurs have won 4 of their 14 games this season. Their last away Premier League win was against Fulham, which seems years ago on January 20th. That it just seems like so long ago, that win. Out of those 11 games since the Fulham one, they've lost 9 and they've drawn 2 of their away games. So that it's astounding stats really for a team who has achieved so much over the last few years. You then look at Everton's home form. They've won 8 of their last 10 home games, 7 of their last 9 in the league, and 6 of those games they've won to 0. They're 5th in the XG table versus Spurs, who are 13th. I really can't see past an Everton win. I think there's really good value here at 13-8.
Mark, should Everton fans be as down as they are at the moment?
Well, they were. I was going to say, I'll hold back what I was going to. They were terrible in the first half against Watford. I disagree. I mean, look, Tottenham's away form is terrible. If Son scores the chance to go 2-0 up at Liverpool last week, I think they probably, well, they definitely wouldn't have lost the game. They probably could have won. In those games, because it's over 2 seasons, this away form, it's a bit skewed. So they've in like this sort of terrible run. They've been to Man City like 3 times. They've been to Anfield twice. They've been to Stamford Bridge twice. It's a bit odd. They were down to 9 men, weren't they, against Bournemouth? And they were concentrating on the Champions League. I think Tottenham have sorted themselves out. The performance at Anfield was a lot better. The performance against Red Star was much more like it. They were like 5-4 to win this game last year, and Everton had Idrissa Gueye in the team and Kurt Zouma. I think Kurt Zouma may have been out, but in their squad. So and Tottenham won 6-2. And that Tottenham team's pretty much the same, and the Everton one I think's worse. And I was a bit surprised here that Tottenham were as big as they were.
A Tottenham fan and an Arsenal fan disagreeing on what the result will be here. Liam, where do you stand on this?
Yeah, I don't really like either side, so I'd be going for both teams scoring over 2.5 goals, about 10-11. Both managers obviously under pressure, but there have been goals in both teams' matches recently. Everton losing 3-2 at Brighton last time out. Over 2.5 goals are landed in 8 of Tottenham's 10 matches this season. They're yet to keep a clean sheet on the road in the league. Everton, they are struggling to defend set pieces, which I think could be a problem in this game. So maybe, we talked last week about goal scorer markets. I still think that's something to consider in terms of maybe Tottenham defenders. But they're also weakened again by the absence of Yerry Mina, I think, because obviously he came back into the team in the EFL Cup game against Watford, but was substituted in the first half. So there's still a bit of uncertainty about his involvement this weekend. If he's not back, then that's certainly obviously a weakness for Everton. They're starting to fire slightly going forwards, 2 goals in each of their last 3 games, but they're too sort of porous at the back for me to warrant a bet. And Tottenham's obviously away issues put me off of them as well. So I think the goal scoring angle is a good way to go.
Okay, let's get the lads' other fancies from across the English football leagues and also Europe. Mark, it was a very strong week from you and Liam and Jason last week, so high expectations to get it right again.
Yeah, these others didn't go so well, though, so hopefully you're a bit better this week. I'm going to go for Plymouth again. They were hammered.
You like Plymouth, don't you?
I do, yeah. I mean, look, one bad performance in a derby against Exeter. I think outside of that, I think the level of play has been quite good in recent weeks. Grimsby on a terrible run at the moment. Last 6, they've lost 5, they've drawn 1. Quite like Posh, draw no bet at Blackpool. Tilt's missing for Blackpool.
That strike force is unbelievable.
It is, yeah. I mean, their sort of play is not great. But when you get to Maddison, to Tony, it all comes alive for them. And I also thought in terms of sort of, if you're looking to build your ACCAs, maybe Fulham to outclass Hull. In Europe, I'd be a layer of Borussia Dortmund. Opponents Wolfsburg got beat 6 by Leipzig in the cup in midweek, so that's not great from them. But they're still unbeaten in the Bundesliga. Dortmund's XG in recent weeks has been not good for a team that's supposedly challenging Bayern Munich, not creating anywhere near as much as they kind of used to. So they look a little bit short to me.
Liam, you got your tips spot on last week. Any fancies this week?
So in the EFL, I was quite surprised by this price. Fleetwood to beat Bolton at 10 to 11.
Wow.
I just think Bolton have been improving in League One of late, but not enough to justify backing them against a Fleetwood team who are obviously looking upwards this season. Joey Barton's made 4th in the standings after 1-0 win over MK Dons last week, and they've won 8 of their 14 league games this season. So Fleetwood for me. And then in Europe, I like the look of Rennes to beat Nîmes in France 2-1. Rennes been in a slight dip of form of late, but are given a huge boost by a 3-2 success against Toulouse last time out. As the nature of that win, they scored the winner in added time in that game. They now have the opportunity to string together positive results against a Nîmes team who've won only 2 of their 11 league games this season.
And Sam, we'll get onto the nap shortly, mate. But any other fancies across the leagues this weekend?
There's a couple of things I like there. I'd go to League 2. I like Bradford to beat Exeter. Exeter's recent away form hasn't been brilliant. They lost 4-0 to Cambridge and then 3-1 against Scunthorpe as well, who are right down the bottom of the league. Bradford do seem to have turned a corner a bit as well. They've won. They did lose to Port Vale in their last game at home, but they did win their 2 before that as well. They're right up in 6th now. I think they will really push on. I like Fylde to beat Dover at home as well. Fylde obviously bringing in Jim Bentley there over the last few days. They did look good in their last game against Boreham Wood with the 2-0 win. And Dover's away form, I mean, they did lose 4-0 against Aldershot in the last game. So I do like the look of Fylde to win as well there. And then I've just picked something from Ligue 1 as well. I like Marseille to beat Lille. Marseille did lose 4-0 to PSG there in their last game, so there must be a reaction from that. And Lille's home form versus their away form is like chalk and cheese. Their away form is so poor. They've picked up 2 points in their last 5 away games, so I'll go for Marseille to win that one as well.
Top stuff, Sam. Right into my favourite part of the week. On the back of a winning nap last week, let's get into the boys' naps.
This will not be beaten.
Certainly wasn't beaten last week. Let's hope for the same again this week. Sam, your nap of the week, please.
I'm going for Derby to win this week. Derby have won their last 3 home games. They've scored 6 goals in them. At first they did struggle at home, but they do seem to have improved a little bit now. Middlesbrough, though, haven't won in 7 games. They failed to score in their last 3. Assombalonga, their top goal scorer, has 3 goals, but he hasn't scored since August, so they are really struggling for goals. Derby, they did sack Richard Coe during the week. It's probably good that they've kind of washed their hands of all of that incident. So I do think Derby will win here. They'll be close to 11-10 by kickoff.
Derby to beat Middlesbrough. Mark?
Wickham to beat Shrewsbury in League 1. I mean, the prices here suggesting there's not much between the two teams. Wickham have been a surprise package, I suppose, this season, but they are second. Shrewsbury in mid-table in 12th. What I really like about Wickham is their defence. They've conceded 2 shots on target in their last 3 matches. Wow. That includes a trip to Rotherham and Sunderland at home. So Gareth Ainsworth, now the longest serving manager in the league, just keeps on producing miracle after miracle. I do prefer teams that have got better attacks than Wickham, so you always are slightly nervous, but they find ways. They've won 6 of their 8 home matches. Shrewsbury in decent nick, only 1 defeat in 8, but they were very lucky against Sunderland last week, and then Tranmere and Lincoln both had red cards. So I think that Wickham are better than Shrewsbury this season. If that's the case, then I think they're at the value bet odds against.
Wickham joined Derby in the boys' naps. Liam, are we going for a clean sweep of EFL teams?
Oh, in the Bundesliga, this one, Leipzig to beat Mainz. Wolfsburg unbeaten in the Bundesliga this year, but they were destroyed 6-1 by Leipzig in the German Cup on Wednesday. Nagelsmann's side suffered a bit of a setback with defeat to Freiburg last time out. That was only their 2nd defeat of the season, and they've been comfortably beating teams they're supposed to. And Mainz are obviously still missing their key striker, Jean-Philippe Mateta. I think I mentioned him last week. So with him out of the picture as well, I think Leipzig are a good bet.
So it's Derby, Wickham and Leipzig. Paddy Powell will get that enhanced. It was a 15-2 winner last week. Hopefully the same again this week. Thank you so much to Sam from Paddy Powell. Thanks to Mark Thanks to Liam. We'll be back again next week for another football postcast. If you want any more football tips, head over to our YouTube channel and watch the Akabaka. Maddie's back tomorrow for the racing postcast. If you enjoyed this, please do feel free to like it on YouTube or rate us on SoundCloud, iTunes, wherever you're listening to this podcast. And we'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.
Friends, or maybe more. Earn a 20 quid free bet for every friend you refer to Paddy Power, thanks to our Friends with Benefits programme. Log into your Paddy Power account and share your referral link to get started. Terms and conditions apply. 18+, begambleaware.org.